Our next menu item is the asset menu. If we go into the asset menu, we see we have options for re-importing assets. We can create new assets, and some of these assets include things simply to help us structure the information and all of the objects and the things that we bring into our project. So we're actually able to create folders and then place items inside of the folder and organize our project in a nice way. Below that, we have the ability to create different script types, shader scripts, prefabs, animations, materials, lots of good stuff in here. We're going to take a closer look at this in a little bit later. Now, below that, we have the option to show and explore, which simply brings up the Explorer and points us to the location of where that file is at. So, for instance, if we were to go to our project, and remember, this is just like a folder. The project is just a folder. So inside of this folder is a scene. Now if we want to see where that is, we can go back up to our assets and do Show and Explore. And you can see that it's pointing us to that folder and to the assets inside of there and just to the Scene 1 and Scene 02. So it's a really nice way of getting to assets if you're trying to get to it in the Explorer. The other option we have is for Open and Delete. Open simply opens the file up in its native program. If it was a Max file, it would open up in 3ds Max, or Photoshop file inside of Adobe Photoshop. Below that, we can delete assets from the scene. Next, we have an option for importing in new assets. Importing in new assets allows us to point to a new asset somewhere on your computer. It doesn't necessarily have to be inside your asset folder. When you do load that folder up, that item up, it will make a copy of that item into your project. So that becomes the object, the asset that gets used in the game, not from where it took it, but it's going to be using the one from where it put it. And we'll look at that in a little bit more detail when we actually start bringing in assets. The refresh option allows us to refresh the item in case you've saved over the item. Let's say inside of Photoshop you've made some tweaks, you've saved it in Photoshop. This lets you refresh that item to make sure that Unity has gotten the latest asset or the model or texture that you're working on. Below that, we can import packages, export packages. This is a way to make a collection of items inside of your project, and then making that collection, we're able to export out a package. And exporting out that package, basically we can check on the things that we want and what we don't want. We could do all or none. Include the dependencies simply means that it's going to find anything that relates back to that file. If I have script files or model files that are associated with it, it's going to include those with it. Those are called its dependencies. And then we simply export, choose our location where we want to drop it, and then export out that package. We export this out, it creates a package, it shows us inside the Explorer the package that we've created. And then if we want to import in that package, we can go to our assets, we can go to our import package, and then we can go to that folder. And inside of that folder, simply select on the package, do open. It says nothing to import simply because all the assets are already in the project. If we didn't have these items inside of there, that would be fine, then we'd actually import it in for us. The next one we have down below is our re-import all, which will just re-import all of the assets in our game, refresh it all if we need to, and then sync with the mono-developed project if we're going to be using that. Okay, next up we're actually going to create some assets in the scene, link things up, parent things up, and get familiar with how the assets actually tie back in to the project over in here.